Who are you without the past? Not your name, not your history, not the things that happened to you years ago, not the wounds, not the roles, not the explanations you keep repeating inside your own mind. If all of that went quiet for a moment, what would remain? Can you sense yourself without the story, without the mind constantly reaching backward to tell you who you are? Because beneath all of that there is something else, a simple sense of being, a presence that exists before thought begins describing it, a quiet awareness beneath the endless narration. And that is what most people almost never notice. Because for most people, the thinking never stops. Thought after thought, judgment after judgment, memory, worry, rehearsal, interpretation. A continuous internal voice laying itself over everything, so constant that it becomes mistaken for identity. But you are not the noise. You are what remains when the noise subsides. And when that stream of thinking does subside, even briefly, something extraordinary is revealed. You are still here. You can still see, still hear, still perceive everything around you. But now there is no constant inner voice layering itself over reality. And in that stillness, you are not less awake. You are more awake, more alert, more alive, more present. This is not something far away. It is not the reward at the end of some impossible journey. It is not locked behind years of struggle. It is already here. Most people touch it for a moment without knowing what happened. All they know is that for a few seconds they felt better, lighter, quieter, more at ease. They do not realize that for a brief moment, thought loosened its grip. Maybe they were sitting with a cat, because the cat is not building a judgment about them. It is not comparing them to an idea. It is not measuring their worth. It is simply there. And when you are with a cat like that, something in you can briefly become simple too. The mental pressure softens. The self-consciousness fades. The endless commentary steps aside. And that feels good. The same can happen with a dog or with animals more broadly. That is part of why people love their pets so deeply. Not only because they bring comfort, not only because they are affectionate, but because in their presence, people are sometimes freed for a moment from the judgmental, conceptual mind. A pet does not require you to maintain an image. It does not force you into performance. It does not drag you deeper into the noise. And so for a few seconds there is just contact, just closeness, just being. And those few seconds matter more than most people realize, because they remind you that beneath the clutter there is still something intact within you. A stillness that was never destroyed, a presence that was only covered over. The same thing happens in other moments too. You swim, you climb, you walk beneath an open sky. You stand somewhere vast enough that your total attention is quietly called forward. And for a moment, there is no room left for thinking. Again, you feel intensely alive, and afterward you say, "That felt good." But what felt good was not just the activity, it was the brief freedom from the incessant stream of thought. The return, however short, to presence. If you do not discover that presence within yourself, life begins to feel like one thing after another, one burden after another, one mental weight piled onto the next. And then every challenge gets amplified. A small problem becomes enormous. A passing conflict becomes a personal crisis. A disappointment becomes proof that everything is falling apart. Not necessarily because life itself is unbearable, but because the mind reacts to everything and magnifies it. That is what clutter does. It fills the inner room so completely that there is no space left to see clearly. And today that clutter is worse than ever. Not only because people already live inside their thoughts, but because modern life keeps feeding the mind more fragments, more interruptions, more mental debris, messages, notifications, endless input, endless reaction. Most of it is trivial. Most of it changes nothing. But it still enters. It still occupies attention. It still leaves residue. There was once a time when if a person was waiting somewhere, there was nothing to do but sit there and look around. And that simple pause had value. Now the moment silence appears, the hand reaches for the phone. And with that one movement, spaciousness is lost. Because instead of looking at the sky, instead of noticing the depth of the world, Instead of simply being here, the mind is pulled back into noise. And when naturally occurring spaciousness disappears from life, something essential disappears with it. But the answer is not to fight every thought one by one. You do not clear the mind by sorting through every fragment individually. The shift is more immediate than that. You withdraw attention from compulsive thinking. You become present. You look, you listen, you breathe, you notice the space around things, you notice the sky, you notice silence, you notice that spaciousness is not an abstract idea but something real, something that can be felt, a deeper field within you that is not identical to the noise in your head. And once you find that inner spaciousness, life does not suddenly stop being difficult. Challenges still come, loss still comes, uncertainty still comes. Life continues to test every living thing, but something changes in the way you meet it. You no longer amplify every challenge into psychological torment. You no longer become completely consumed by every difficulty. You see what is in front of you more clearly. You act when action is needed. You endure what must be endured, but you stop turning every problem into your entire identity. And that changes everything. Because the goal is not a life with no challenges. That life does not exist. The shift is that challenges no longer have the same power to drag you under. There is space around them now, perspective, stillness, awareness. And from that place, life becomes clearer, not perfect, not painless, but clearer. The storm may still pass overhead, but it no longer becomes the whole sky. And in that clarity, something begins to return. Not another belief, not another performance, not another idea to cling to, something more immediate than that. Presence, stillness, spaciousness, the part of you that was never truly lost, only buried beneath the clutter.